So, like, just following on from Senator Hodgins-May's questions, is there a target number of redundancies, Dr. Hilton?
Absolutely not for enterprise services. We have a savings amount we want to aim for, and of course our primary goal is to minimise impact on staff, so we're looking at operational costs.
Sure.
As a first
operational
pass.
Costs. You said that it's 43 from health and biosecurity. Which other areas will there be redundancies?
So we are looking at the costs in enterprise services, which is the major part of our work at the moment. There are two other business units where we are looking at potential impacted staff. They are agriculture and food, where there are 30 potentially impacted staff, and manufacturing, where there are 5 potentially impacted staff across 2 programs.
Can I ask what sort of staff? Is this admin or is this research?
In these units, these will be research staff, as I said.
Research staff?
Absolutely. We look to refine the capability that we have in those units. As you would understand, science priorities change, national priorities change, and not all scientists have exactly the same skills, and it's important to be able to refine the capabilities that we can deploy to the most important problems that the nation faces.
Sure.
And there will always be a case for doing that in an ongoing manner.
Sure. I mean, ag and food, it seems like something we're going to need for a while, and I've heard a lot from Labor about manufacturing.
There's lots of different scientists that contribute to those areas, and we want to make sure that we have the programs that we believe are going to be most impactful, and that requires us over time to change the mix of scientists we have.
Impactful in terms of commercialisation or in terms of research that will maybe lead to something one day?
No, my only concern is impact for the nation and the community.
Sure.
And sometimes that requires a commercialisation pathway, and sometimes that's not the appropriate pathway to impact. We would, for example, work with NGOs, we would work with government departments to have impact, health systems. So commercialisation for me is one important pathway to impact, but absolutely not the only pathway to impact, Senator.
What about Data 61?
There are no plans yet for Data 61.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Senator Pocock.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your time this morning. Just following on from the sort of job cuts, Senator Hodgins-May was asking about the 43 from health and biosecurity. You said you were still consulting. At estimates, you said 30 from ag and food and 5 from manufacturing. Are there any in addition to that yet?
Not on the research side, no.
And in the non-research side?
As I mentioned, we're considering how we bring into place a 25% reduction in costs total. Our first port of call, as you would expect, would be for us to look at operating costs, so non-labour costs. Once we've gone through that, and we are in consultation at the moment, we'll then consider what staff reductions we need, but they can be a range of reductions, including end-of-term contracts, voluntary redundancies, and, as a matter of last resort, redundancies.
But to confirm, as yet, no redundancies have been offered?
No.
Thank you. You also said there are no plans for Data 61. Yep. Is that still the case?
Yep, there are no workforce plans. So, once we have a plan, we would be consulting with staff. But we always ask research leaders to consider the capability they need and their budgets. And I know Data 61, like other research units, are looking at that. So there's thoughts, but there's not a tangible plan, and nothing has been brought to staff.
And so if there are cuts in Data 61, it'll be to projects and systems rather than personnel?
No, that's not what I said.
Okay.
They're considering their budget and considering how they operate within that and the capability they need, but there is no plan as yet for those staff cuts.
Okay. What's the timeline for that plan for Data 61?
Probably weeks and months, so it depends a little bit on it depends a little bit on the capability they need, and they're discussing that at the moment. So I can't give you an exact time. It's certainly not years.
Okay. Are these redundancies linked to the reduction in ASL funding in the next budget?
In the end of the budget measure for COVID, all of the financial pressure is linked partly to that. So, the budget measure for COVID was a time-limited measure, as many budget measures are, and we've been working out as an organisation how we adjust to that endpoint for probably the last 12 months, and what you're seeing playing out now is our response to that.
And so what is the total budget cut going into the next financial year?
There's not a budget cut. There's an end of a time-limited budget measure. So I think...
And what's the quantum of that?
It was $450 million over 4 years.
$454 million over 4 years.
So we're adjusting to that change. And we're looking at different ways of mitigating that. And that represents part of our budget, the appropriation. We also leverage the appropriation by finding and securing funds from industry, from government departments on specific budget measures, and then through flexible resources that we can find, for example, through commercialisation of the work we do. And so we're looking at all of those to ensure that the impact on staff is as small as possible.